They didn't expect me to show up. Honestly, I'm not sure I did either. The wedding invitation sat on my desk like a dare, heavy cardstock, gold-embossed lettering, one name printed neatly across the front, Major General Evelyn Maddox. Not Evelyn, not Evie, certainly not our daughter. Just a title, as if that made me easier to stomach. 6 years, that's how long it had been since I heard my parents' voices, in any form other than a voicemail forwarded by mistake, or a name dropped in pity at a military gala. No calls on my birthday, no messages when I nearly lost my hearing in Helmand. Just silence. Cold, curated silence. But now I get a wedding invitation to my sister Hayley's big day, handwritten note inside, behave. No, we miss you. No, hope to see you. Just that one word, like I was a threat. I turned it over in my hand, wondering how they'd even found my mailing address. Maybe they didn't. Maybe the Army's event protocol team forwarded it. Or maybe Hayley just figured her little PR stunt wouldn't be complete without the family disgrace in the back row. This wasn't an olive branch, it was a performance. And I wasn't invited to be part of the family. I was invited to be proof that they tried. That's the thing about revenge stories. People assume they start with anger. But mine, it started with disbelief. Then a sort of quiet, aching curiosity. Did they still know how to write my name? Outside, the wind tapped at the window pane like it wanted to say something. I leaned against the sill and stared out across the Stuttgart training grounds. A new class of recruits were mid-drill, young, hopeful, loud. They didn't know yet what it meant to be erased by the people who raised you. I envied that. A knock broke the stillness. My aide, Simmons, stepped in without waiting. "You going?" he asked, eyes flicking to the envelope. He always knew more than he said. "Just got the invite," I replied, voice flat. He raised an eyebrow. "That's what we're calling it?" I didn't answer. Because it wasn't an invitation. It was a challenge, a test, maybe a warning, and I hadn't decided yet whether to walk away or walk in. Either way, I'd bring the stars on my shoulders, not to show off, but to remind them they don't get to erase me quietly anymore. Virginia greeted me like a postcard someone forgot to personalize. Perfect cherry blossoms, clean sidewalks, hedges trimmed with surgical precision. Too clean, too staged. The kind of place that looks perfect from far away, until you get close. I pulled into the cul-de-sac and parked across from the house I once called home. Everything looked exactly the same, which somehow made it worse. I hadn't been back since my father's funeral. Not really. Back then, there wasn't even a seat left for me in the front row. I stood the entire time in full uniform while my mother sat between Hayley and Uncle Roy like nothing was wrong. Today it was my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner, and somehow that stung more. I knocked. A pause. Then came the scent. Lemon polish. Barbara Maddox's signature. The smell of disapproval disguised as cleanliness. The door opened. She stared at my uniform for a beat too long. "Evelyn," she said, voice even, "please don't ruin this for Hayley." Not hello, not you look well. Just a warning. I nodded. Barely. Inside, nothing had changed. The same china cabinet, the same chandelier, the same tension humming under the mahogany table. 14 people sat around it. 15 seats. Guess which one was mine? Far end. Right beside the sideboard. The one spot where the heat from the kitchen would warm your back just enough to keep you uncomfortable. Not next to Hayley, not even in the middle. They knew exactly what they were doing. No one said, "Evelyn's back." No one introduced me. I was just there, like a shadow in a starched uniform. One cousin glanced up and whispered to someone beside her. I caught the words, "Security?" I didn't even flinch. But maybe you've been there, walked into a room that used to hold your memories and felt like a stranger. If that's ever happened to you, I bet you still remember the silence louder than the laughter. It's wild how people can erase you in plain sight, isn't it? The reception ballroom looked like a magazine spread, white linen, gold-rimmed plates, a ridiculous ice sculpture shaped like intertwined initials. Everything about it screamed perfection, except the seating chart. My name wasn't there. I stood in front of the brass easel scanning down the rows, Haley and Andrew at table 1, our parents at table 2, cousins at 3 and 4. And on it went. No Evelyn Maddox, no Major General, just a tiny E. Maddox scribbled in small print at table 12 near the catering exit. The napkin at my place was a slightly different shade of cream, subtle but clear, not a mistake, a message. I'd seen battlefields with less calculation. Haley floated through the room like she owned the air, dress perfect, makeup flawless, that trademark smile that made people trust her even when she was twisting the knife. She paused near my table just long enough to smile and say, "I told them not to make it too military looking for your side." Then she walked away before I could reply. I wasn't surprised. But still, I'd saved her fiancé's life. And now I was being treated like a +1 nobody claimed. The toast started. Dad went first, toasted new beginnings. Mom added, to loyalty and grace. They both looked right through me. No mention of the daughter who flew halfway across the world. No thanks for attending. No welcome back. Then Haley took the mic. Champagne flute in one hand, she swirled like it was a Broadway moment. To think, she said sweetly, even my big sister made it tonight, flying all the way from wherever she guards doors now. The room laughed, not softly, not awkwardly. It was the kind of laugh that comes easy when the target isn't in the room, except this time I was. And then Barbara, my mother, chimed in from table 2. She's the shame of this family, but at least she's punctual. That was it. The whole ballroom tipped into full laughter. Glasses clinked. No one looked uncomfortable. No one tried to stop it. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I stood up slowly, lifted my glass, untouched until now, and took a calm sip. The silence that followed didn't come because I shouted. It came because I didn't. I set my glass down and spoke clearly. The people I guard, I said, outrank everyone in this room. That was all, but it hit harder than any insult they'd planned. No one laughed after that. Not because they understood, but because for the first time they didn't know where to place me anymore. I was still standing. Not because I had something to say, but because for once I needed them to see me, not guess, not assume, not avoid. And then I saw him, Andrew, standing at the far end of the ballroom, halfway between his new in-laws and the people who once cheered his commissioning. His jaw was tight, eyes locked on mine. He didn't laugh. He didn't smile. He just walked, slow, steady, with that soldier's gait you can't fake. He moved past the cousins, the neighbours, the friends of friends, past my mother, who whispered something sharp that he ignored, past Haley, who froze mid-glance and clutched her champagne like it might save her. He stopped one pace away from me, not close, not casual, formal, and then he saluted, crisp, sharp, regulation perfect. Then, clear enough to cut through every chandelier and every lie in the room, he said, "This is Major General Evelyn Maddox, my commanding officer. Please forgive my wife." You could hear the gasp before you saw who it came from. Haley's smile cracked. Her eyes went wide. The mic slipped from her hand, hit the floor, and thudded like a gavel. She fainted. Someone screamed. A flute of champagne shattered. My mother stood so fast her chair toppled. But me? I didn't blink, because this wasn't revenge, this was recognition, and it was long overdue. The ballroom froze, not with panic, but with something colder, realization. Then, from one of the side tables near the wine bar, a man in uniform stood, Colonel Reardon, retired but still proud. He raised his hand in salute, no words, just respect. Then another, General Park. Then a third, an older woman I didn't know, but whose eyes said everything. She'd worn stars once too. 4 salutes, 4 truths made visible. And no one could unsee it now. My mother tried to speak. "This is not the time." But no one was looking at her anymore. The eyes in the room had shifted, not because I asked for them, but because they finally understood what they'd erased. And just like that, The shame they'd thrown on me fell back on them, quiet but heavy. Andrew lowered his salute. He stepped back, giving me the floor. Without ever saying another word. I didn't take the mic. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood there. And somehow, that was louder than anything they'd ever said to me. The hotel lounge was quiet, not cozy, strategic. Velvet chairs, dim lamps, hushed voices. The kind of place where secrets didn't echo. Barbara Maddox sat across from me in a pale cardigan and a blouse with pearl buttons. Not one was undone. Of course, she didn't reach for me, didn't smile, just said, "You certainly made a statement." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She took a sip of her cold coffee. "The media is buzzing. Some of the headlines are flattering, some aren't." Still nothing from me. "I wasn't prepared," she continued. "None of us were. Not Haley, not even your father, if he was still—" "Haley fainted," I said flatly. Barbara blinked. "She has sensitivities." "To truth?" I asked. "Or to not being the centre of attention?" Her grip on the cup tightened. "I didn't come to fight." "Then why did you come?" I asked. She hesitated, then leaned forward just slightly. "I thought maybe you could release a statement, something neutral, clarifying that we, didn't fully understand your position." There it was. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You want me to issue a press statement, not to correct a lie, but to protect your discomfort." She flinched, slight, but I caught it. "You have to understand," she said. "We didn't mean to hurt you. I was trying to protect the family's image. You were different, loud." "I wasn't loud," I replied. "I was visible. That's not the same thing." Then I reached into my leather folio. I slid a document across the table. She didn't touch it, just stared. "This was sent 7 years ago," I said. "An anonymous tip to the Military Ethics Board, alleging I falsified combat reports, questioned the validity of my Bronze Star, said I was unstable, politically promoted." Barbara didn't blink. "I was passed over for my first star that year," I continued. "No explanation, just silence." "That could have been anyone," she said quickly. "You're a public figure." I slid the second page forward. Linguistic analysis, military use only, cross-referenced writing patterns, sentence structure, phrases. I tapped the bottom line. 96% match, Haley Maddox. Secondary lexical contributor, Barbara Maddox. Barbara's lips parted, then closed again. For the first time I saw it, the crack behind the pearl buttons. "You," she started. I didn't write it. "But you gave her the language," I said. "The access, the documents, the tone. She sent it. But it was your fingerprints." She looked down at her coffee. It had gone cold. "You didn't just ignore me, Mother," I said. "You sabotaged me, quietly, professionally, efficiently." Her eyes welled, but no tears fell. "I made choices," she whispered, "and I paid for them." "I didn't stop loving you," she said. "No," I replied. "You just stopped calling." The silence that followed wasn't angry. It was heavier than that. "Do you have any idea what it feels like," I said, "to watch your mother pretend you don't exist?" Her voice cracked. "I was trying to protect your sister. She couldn't compete with—" "She didn't have to compete," I said sharply. "She just had to show up, and you made sure I was too buried to be seen." Barbara looked older in that moment. Not softer, just exhausted. She reached a hand halfway across the table. "I never wanted to lose you." "You didn't lose me," I said. "You pushed me out the door, then blamed me for not coming home." She said nothing. Her hand stayed hovering, never landed. "If someone asks why I stopped coming," I continued, "don't say I drifted. Don't tell them it was complicated. Tell them the truth. You made a choice, and so did I." I stood, left the documents on the table. She didn't chase me. That's the thing about betrayal by your own mother. It doesn't need a raised voice. It just needs silence and paperwork. The breeze off the Amalfi coast smelled like salt and lemon. I stood barefoot on the terrace of a small cottage tucked into the cliffs, a cup of dark espresso in one hand, the sea stretching out below me like it had nothing to prove. For the first time in years, I felt still. No orders. No dress codes, no ceremonies or salutes, just morning light, canvas, and silence that didn't punish me for existing. The press never got the statement they wanted. I didn't give them a quote or a soundbite. Just one moment, one salute that said everything, and that was enough. The clip from the wedding went viral, over 3 million views in the first 48 hours. The caption read, "They mocked her until her rank silenced the room." I never commented. Never shared it, never explained. I didn't need to. Weeks later, the Pentagon called. They offered me the chair position on the new Joint Ethics Advisory Board, a seat built, ironically, out of the very betrayal that tried to break me. But I said no. Instead, I launched the Resilience Foundation, a national resource for service members whose careers have been sabotaged by the people closest to them, spouses, siblings, parents. We help them rebuild. Not just their clearance, but their confidence. Because sometimes the biggest battles aren't fought in uniform, they're fought at dinner tables, in family group chats, in empty seats at funerals. The irony? The people who worked hardest to erase me are the ones who made me unforgettable. A few months ago, my mother sent a letter, handwritten. She said she watched my interview on PBS, the one about betrayal and chain of command. She wrote, "I didn't realize how far you had climbed. I wish I had seen you then." But that's the thing. She did see me. She just didn't want to. And now she doesn't get access to who I've become, not because I hate her, but because I finally love myself enough to choose distance without guilt. The military taught me how to lead under fire. But exile? My family taught me that, so I made peace with it. This morning, the boy from the village came by with a basket of bread and olives. He asked in broken English, "Were you really a general?" I smiled. "Once," I said. "Now I'm just someone who decided not to disappear." He grinned and ran off, barefoot and laughing. I turned back toward the sea, and for the first time the silence didn't hurt. Have you ever had to walk away, not to hurt them, but to finally protect yourself? I'm not asking for details, just if this story reminded you of someone or some silence you've lived through, tell me you're here. That's it. Just drop a or a word. I'll read them all. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If you felt seen, even just for a moment, then I'm glad we found each other here.